Okay, so welcome to the Featured Snippet Challenge Part 2. Now, if you haven't seen Part 1, I would recommend going over there and taking a look at Part 1. Then come straight here and see Part 2, okay? I want to give you the story so far. In Part 1, I showed you a volatile featured snippet, okay? The search term was Best Texas Hold'em. Okay, for that term, you type that into Google, you see a featured snippet at the top. We looked in the SERP feature monitor, the Rank Ranger SERP feature monitor, and it was showing that over a period of 30 days, there's a certain volatility. Now, what does that mean? That means like this. Some days, Google would show one URL in the featured snippet. Some days, Google would show a different URL. It's a certain, sometimes this one, sometimes that one. Now, when you see volatility, that's usually a good sign that Google's not too happy about what's currently ranking. Now, maybe you want to come and make the perfect piece of content that Google loves, and you'll rank there the whole time. Maybe you'll make it stable. But it's not always the case. So the first step is really to try and figure out what's the reason for the volatility. So the challenge I gave you was to look just at the title tags alone, nothing more, just the title tags, and tell me what you think is the reason for the volatility. Okay? So, okay, that's the first thing. Now, I want to say I really enjoyed this little experiment of mine. I wanted to see if I could interact, and see if someone would write something in the comments and I could interact with you. And I really enjoyed the interaction. So I might make more of these challenge videos. Now, if you like this format, say hell yeah in the comments, okay? Right, hell yeah in the comments. If I see a bunch of hell yeahs, if I see enough, I'll make more challenges. If not, maybe I won't. We'll see. We'll see. Okay? But now, okay, so let's jump into the SERP feature monitor. Let's look at those URLs, and I'll tell you what I think is the reason for the volatility. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Darren Mordecai with Rank Ranger. Rank Ranger is an all-in-one SEO and digital marketing platform that will help you scale your business through data and analytics. Let's get started. Now that we've had a little bit of a recap, so just to remind you, we're in the Rank Ranger SERP feature monitor. Just by the way, things have changed quite a lot on the SERP because there have been 2 algorithm updates. This is an unconfirmed one, and this is the core update. So the whole SERP is a bit different. But nonetheless, I think we can still gain from this. And when I created this case study, the SERPs were a bit different, and the data is still valuable. So let's jump in here. So just to remind you, these are your title tags, the blue. And then the green are the URLs. And I asked you, just on the title tags, nothing else, what do you think is the reason for the volatility in the featured snippet? Okay, and one more thing. I don't know if you remember, you can go back and listen to the video again, watch the video again, but I gave you a clue, okay? I went up here and I reminded you the keyword is Best Texas Hold'em, okay? That's a little clue. So let me give you the answer. This is what I honestly think is the reason, and let's go. So let's read the title tags, okay? Now, before I do this, some people pointed out that the title tag isn't really the reason necessarily for the featured snippet. And I agreed. And we're not going to look at the title tag and assume that's a ranking factor for featured snippets. I don't really think that's necessarily true. What am I looking at the title tag? The title tag tells me what content this URL is pointing at. It tells me about the content. So let's read the title tags. Top Texas Hold'em Poker Sites 2021. Fine, okay. So this is a bunch of sites, a list, probably a list article of sites. The Odds Shark, Best Texas Hold'em Hands. Okay? Now, for those of you who don't know, a hand in poker describes the cards that a player is holding, literally in their hand, I guess. That's why it's called hands. In other words, it's describing the cards that a player would be holding. So straight away, what do I see? I see that each URL is pointing to a completely different type of content. One is for sites and one is for hands. Okay? In other words, there really, I could imagine two reasons for volatility. The first reason would be based on the quality of the actual content. Meaning, let's say I have, there's a whole lot of content that's ranking on Google, and some is better than others. If Google's not sure which the best one is, maybe there'll be some volatility. Maybe one day will be the Sports Geek. Google thinks it's better. Then it's OddsShark. Maybe that's better, not sure, and it's bouncing up and down. But we're not seeing that. Why? Because if they were the same type of content, I could understand, yeah, it's a question of quality. But if it's two different types of content, one is something about sites and one is something about hands, then we really just, Google is offering up two completely different subject matters. Okay, now I'll explain why this is so. Let's go back up to the clue. This is your big clue. Best Texas Hold'em. Now, that search term, let's give this some thought, okay? Best is describing the quality of something. There's a group of things, and this is the best one. I'm looking for the best one. The best what? The best Texas Hold'em. But 1 second, how many Texas Hold'ems are there? Well, as far as I know, it's a game, and there's really only one. So maybe we need to modify this and explain what the best is describing. Is it best Texas Hold'em players? Or maybe it's best Texas Hold'em hands? Or maybe it's best Texas Hold'em sites? In other words, the aspect of Texas Hold'em, the main aspect is missing here. Best Texas Hold'em what? The search term itself is completely confusing. Meaning, as a human being, I don't even know what it means, right? I don't know what it was talking about. Is it hands? Is it sites? Is it players? Is it... I don't know. So if I can't work it out, I highly doubt that Google can work it out. Now, Google doesn't have to work it out based on its understanding. Google probably works it out based on user metrics. Maybe how many people are clicking on this one, how many people are clicking on that one. Who knows exactly how it works. But the point here is that this search term is completely vague. So if you want to optimize your featured snippet for this, or your content for this search term, you're going to always have to contend with the problem that the search term is completely vague. So maybe this will never be stable, okay? This might never be stable because maybe the users themselves are going to be consistently bouncing backwards and forwards, not sure. Or maybe it could stabilize, who knows? But if I was a gambling man, so I would not try to get my featured snippet to try and stabilize this featured snippet because it's too vague. Now, I want to prove this to you. Now, as I said before, there have been two big algorithm changes, and actually there's going to be a third one soon. So everything looks a bit different on the SERP. But I want to actually show you a screenshot that I took of the SERP when I found this little insight. And you'll see something very interesting. So I'm going to click over to the blog post. I wrote a blog post about this. So let's just take a quick look at the screenshot that shows on the blog post. I'm going to put a link in the description to the blog post, and you can read all about it there. But let's take a look. So here you see the search term Best Texas Hold'em. And I put little boxes around everything just to make this visually obvious. So here we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 URLs that are showing up, these 6 blue links. And guess what? There's 4 purple ones and 2 red ones, okay? Let's read the title tags. Best Texas Hold'em sites, best online poker sites, best Texas Hold'em sites, and best Hold'em poker sites. Great, now let's look at the red ones. Best Texas Hold'em poker hands and poker hand chart. So I think this is a pretty good piece of evidence. Let's say this is the damning evidence that Google doesn't know what is the best piece of content to show here. Because let's face it, if I'm looking on Google for what's the best hand, then I would assume there'd be a whole bunch of poker hands on here. And if I was looking for poker sites, then I'd see only poker sites. But when you see 2 completely different types of content ranking on one SERP, then you understand that the actual user intent is confusing. And when the user intent is confusing, you're really starting to compete with two completely different types of content. And this is what Google's doing. It's kind of throwing up both. So I think this is pretty good evidence to my analysis that Google is confused, or maybe Google assesses that there are two completely different user intents. Different user intents should have different types of sites pointing to them. Okay, so now what do you do next? So we clearly have a volatile featured snippet, but we also clearly have two completely different user intents. Hands, sites. Not the same thing, right? So I think before I give it into my recommendation, let's just think about the following thing. Let's say that Best Texas Hold'em has a nice big search volume, okay? Well, do you really want to get that group of people? I mean, that group of people could be made up of a whole slew of people, right? You may have people looking for sites. You may have a bunch of people looking for hands. You might be, people looking for players. It could be a whole number of people, right? With such a vague user intent, you're not going to get the best CTRs. You're not going to get the best conversion rates because most of the people don't want what you have to offer. If you're writing about sites, it could be a bunch of the people are looking for hands, etc., right? So here's my recommendation. In SEO, I think this is a general rule. Always go for the most clear user intent. That's what I would suggest, right? That's why those long tail keywords, they may have very small user intent, but you know exactly if someone wrote something long and they specified exactly what they're looking for, so you know what to serve them, right? But when it's vague like this, could be this, could be that. So of your, let's say, 500 people, how many people want your content? Well, who knows? So I would suggest if you're writing about hands, target poker hands. If you're writing about sites, target poker sites, and go for the featured snippets there. Now, I'm not saying you won't win on this SERP. You may very well get it. You may even get a stable one. Who knows? But if I was a gambling man, I would always put the stakes in my favor. I'd always go for the one where it's clear. That's my personal take. I hope you agree. Okay? And I hope you got something out of this. Now, if you did, or if you didn't, write about it in the comments. Tell me what you enjoyed about this, what you didn't. If you want more challenges like this, say yeah in the comments, or if you tell me. And I hope you've subscribed to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one.